we are back, as promised, with our guests, Jonah and Ellen Zimiles, who are coming to us from, are you coming to us from Maplewood, New Jersey?
Today, actually, New York City, but in general, we're in Maplewood.
Okay, in general, you're in Maplewood. And in 2009, you opened the Words Bookstore. That's Words spelled, you see it on the screen there. And it's helped over 100 individuals with autism work in its vocational training program. First of all, you have amazing backgrounds. Ellen, you're Managing Director in Financial Services Advisory and Compliance, Segment Leader at Navigant, what a mouthful that is, a global consulting firm where you specialize in financial crime investigation and compliance. You were an Assistant United States Attorney in the Southern District of New York for more than 10 years. You were a partner in a Big Four accounting firm. Jonah, you have a very impressive background. You practiced law for over a dozen years before spending 6 years as a stay-at-home dad after your son Daniel was diagnosed with autism. And you went on back to school at age 50 and received an MBA from Columbia University's Graduate School of Business. Whew, and if it's so that's not enough, you're both co-chairs of the Night of Too Many Stars, and you've been presented with the Maplewood Chamber of Commerce Distinguished Service Award. So lots of amazing things in your background.
Boy, you guys are slouches.
You're making me feel like a slouch,
right?
That's for sure.
Wow. And then on top of that, this amazing bookstore. We want to know what motivated you to open Words.
Well, it was Ellen's idea, so I'll let her tell the story.
So Jonah and I wanted to have some sort of vocational program. You know, people with autism are adults much longer than their children. And we wanted to make sure that not only our son, but others would have, you know, a meaningful life, a meaningful and productive adult life. And so we were trying to figure out what was the best way to do that, how could we do that. And even in my firm, you know, we had hired a few people with autism, but not on a large scale. And we tried to figure out how we could do this in our town, Maplewood, New Jersey, which is a lovely town and very heterogeneous, very, you know, sort of very yummy. And we saw that there was a bookstore. It was a small bookstore on the side street that was, you know, that was going out of business and wanted to sell to a local, you know, business owner.
And that was in September.
Labor Day. That was Labor Day
2008, right when our son was about 12 then.
Right. And so I came home and said, Jonah, what do you think if we buy the bookstore and we turn that into a vocational program, you know, in a real business, and we do this as a real business? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, I've never run a bookstore. I've never done anything.
Or any kind of retail.
Or any kind of retail, right? Since I think he was a bag boy at a supermarket. But it was, if you remember, 2008 was sort of a tough time, and there were some big storefronts empty, and Maplewood was hurting a bit. So within 24 hours, Jonah came back to me and said,
"Sure, whatever you say, dear." But I had suggested that instead of being on the side street in a small space, which first of all I thought would be very crowded and very difficult for particularly kids with autism to move around. It was always kind of hard to bring our son into the bookstore. Right. Plus, we wanted to help the town out, and so we thought that if we moved to a really big space, the largest storefront in the middle of town, that would both help the community more and also be a better spot for our for workers as well as kids who are visiting the bookstore.
So that was the start of it, and so so September is when we, you know, had the idea. By November we had the deal with the owner, and we spent then those last 2 months in that space, in the smaller space, learning a little bit about what it's like to go through the holiday season in a bookstore, which is quite a time to learn it. And then by January 20th, 2009, it was Inauguration Day, we opened up Words on the main street. The bigger space on the main street.
Wow.
And how did you go about recruiting young people with autism and getting them involved? Tell us about your program for them.
Yeah, the first thing I quickly learned was not only, I knew that I didn't know much about the book industry or about retail, but I also learned that while I felt very comfortable with people with autism because of my son and his friends and classmates and people who I worked with, that I didn't know that much about vocational training. And we quickly received offers from schools to bring people in to do job sampling and things like that. And that served as a good model. One of the things we had been hoping to work on, and we've done some work with, is when people in New Jersey, and I think in many states, special needs kids can go to school through age 21, but then they, transition out, and it's often called falling off the cliff. And we were hoping to help provide transition services, which we've been able to do some as well. So we do both kids in high school, or ages 18 through 21, and then also some young people at 21, and now we've expanded to some adults as well.
And we also wanted to make the store a place that anybody could really go to, and that people with special needs would feel very comfortable in. And so we trained our staff about people with special needs, because not the whole staff had necessarily had exposure to that, and didn't know how to, what they should expect or how to behave. And so we did a training with them. There was an organization that came in to train them, and that was very helpful. So people could freely sort of ask questions, but know that this is sort of a safe space, and that people come in and they make noise or they do something. That's okay. This is a place where they are accepted and welcomed, and families can bring the entire family there.
Yeah, I'd love to just chime in on that for a second if I could, because I think it's just so important that, and fortunately, the situation seems much better today than it was a decade ago, but there were a lot of families of people with autism who were reluctant to bring their kids out into the community and felt very awkward and uncomfortable. I remember when our son was small, going to stores and feeling very uncomfortable about it, and we thought that it could be very helpful to those families to know there was always a place to go. And in fact, also to model for other businesses in the community that it was fine to have families with autism visiting, and we quickly got our name known, and we had plenty of kids with autism in visiting, and it's always a tremendous pleasure for that when that happens.
And then Jonah did something else, which I thought was really terrific. He created a program called Second Sundays, which is the second Sunday of every month, and we bring in people, all different kinds of people, whether it's someone cooking or sewing or theater or dance or karate, to sort of expose people with autism to those different events. Oh, there, you've got some. Okay.
Yeah, a free one, right?
Right, and so it's free. Anyone came in, we start out with different sort of sets, but that's our son up there in the white karate outfit.
Okay.
But we wanted to expose them to different kinds of things. You never know what someone's going to like unless they get exposed to it. So I remember we had someone who did sewing. It was more like a needlepoint,
Yeah, a picture of it, yeah.
Yes, right, needlepoint with sort of, on burlap with large sort of, a big needle and large wool. And he loved it. And I was very surprised. I had no idea he would like it that much, or that his fine motor coordination would be really appropriate for it. And it was great for him. So you never know until you expose people. So that was sort of another thing that Jonah actually created that was very impressive.
It's amazing what you guys, it's a gift to your community in so many different ways that you guys have created this. But this isn't the first time that you've made forays. Talk a little bit about the other ways that you are involved in the autism community.
So maybe you can talk about your employment thing.
Right. Yes. So again, it is putting your money where your mouth is here. So when I had started a company, again, 2006, I guess is when we started this, and I felt like, look, if I'm running this company, I'm going to have some people with autism who work here. And so once we get started, not very far into it, I think I started in June 2006. By January 2007, we had our first employee who is with me still today. And we looked around and we went to an organization that, that sort of trained people, and we interviewed 3 different people, and we picked actually the one that was most challenged, because the other 2 were fine. One had a job, the other one, it was barely perceptible that she had any issues. And we said, it's really not that much of a, challenge or that much of a big deal to hire other people. We wanted to hire the more challenging person. And we did, and when we told the agency that we were hiring that one that was most challenged, they said, what are you, who, which one? And we told them, and we explained why, and it was terrific. And you would not have known this, because during the interview, she was very not particularly communicative. She talked and she in response to questions, but not particularly, involved. And when she was told that she got the job, the people at the agency said she screamed up and down. She was so happy and so excited that she actually got this job that you don't really know what's going on inside somebody. And
We're gonna ask you to pause for just 1 second. Nancy's gonna step out to take a call. I'm gonna continue on. We've been waiting for a phone call from a doctor, and we're gonna ask our viewers beg their pardon while Nancy. We're not even gonna go to break. We're gonna have her step in front of the camera,
That's
so that we can
fine.
keep you guys here. Because when a doctor calls, you gotta do what you gotta do.
In fact, I wanted to comment on that if I could. We do about 100 author events a year at our bookstore. And traditionally at these events, and particularly, in bookstore events, something like that, people are often say, everyone silence your phones and turn your phones off. And in fact, I get up in front of the room sometimes and make an announcement that everyone should keep their phones on, because I'm used to our community and we get these emergency phone calls from doctors or teachers or schools or caregivers, and they're really more important than the minor inconvenience of having interruptions. So we certainly appreciate and understand that.
Right.
Well, you guys are awesome. Thank you Nancy has stepped out now. And so I wanted to talk just briefly about, you were saying about the things that you do in the autism community and how you had this person, you gave them the job that had some significant challenges and how excited they were. I want to know what happened.
So she's working for me still today. This was in January of 2007, and she still works with us.
And you had a second person.
And then we had a
also.
second person, right, who we hired, and then we did this who's still here. So he started the following January. We brought this to the Chicago office, to the Washington office, and to our London office, and it's been a great success. And people behave better in front of them. Everyone is very thoughtful in front of them and wants to be their best, wants to be the best person they can be. So they do a fine job. They do a very good job in what they do and what we need them to do. They've expanded some of what they do. We taught the first person how to bind documents and to do, different things. The other person actually can take the subway and make deliveries and set up computers and do different things. He also happens to be the top Avon salesman in his, area.
Oh, wow.
And he was, the captain of our softball team, did lots of different things, so that the two of them are really great here. We have had several people with special needs who work here, and it is always a plus for the work that they do, which is not charity work. It is real, true work that's needed, plus the impact they have on the other employees. That's really very special and meaningful, and raises everybody up. So we're big supporters of hiring people with special needs.
And in addition to the bookstore, I serve on several autism boards, but two in particular. One is a place called Spectrum 360, which is a special needs school with about 250 students. We've got about 100 people in the day program right now. And then also something called the Friendship Circle that you may have out in LA chapter as well. And we're opening a 53,000 square foot special needs center called Lifetown that should be open any day now, and we're opening up our second branch of our bookstore there. But when you hear about Lifetown, that's going to be something really to check out. I expect to be a national news story. The National Football League and New York Jets have donated a professional football field there that we're going to be having special needs leagues, sports leagues, and their bowling alley and swimming and all kinds of stores and activities.
So it's like inside of it is a world where you have a bookstore, you'll have a pet store, you'll have a bank, different places where people can where people can get trained sort of on how to work how to navigate the real world.
And we'll be bringing the community in, so there will still be an integrated setting because we have 800 teen volunteers, for example, who work every week at the with the Friendship Circle, and we bring in families and typical kids for birthday parties and things like that.
We have to have you do a live thing from Lifetown once it's open.
Yes.
I'd be happy to do it.
We have to do that. And there'll be another bookstore there. So we're running out of time. How can people support this bookstore and this movement and buy books from you guys?
Well, you're welcome to shop at wordsbookstore.com. We'd love that. And you can also, thank you, and you can also email me at jonah@wordsmaplewood.com if you want to talk more about the bookstore.